everyone, my name's Rachel and today I want to talk to you a little bit about psychics. Psychics and mediums actually, and anyone else who claims to have those kind of powers. So hopefully this is just going to be a kind of little bit of an introduction to the topic and my thoughts on it, and in the future, if you guys like this, I might do some more talking about what cold reading is, how it works, why some people believe it, talking a little bit about the differences between cold and hot reading, and going into some more examples and debunking specific bits about certain psychics, whether it's to do with their readings, whether it's to do with prophecies or whatever. But for now, this is hopefully just going to be a nice basic little introduction to my thoughts on the topic about basically why I don't really like psychics. So the first big issue I have with them is that they do take advantage of vulnerable people. Often the people who go to psychics or to see them are people who are emotionally vulnerable, or they're at a low point in their life, or they're feeling a little bit lost, they don't really know what to do. So while doing research for this video, I found one little article or story in particular that I found quite interesting. This is written by a woman called Danielle, who actually does believe in psychics. I think she does quite like to get their opinion on things and find out a little bit about what's going to happen in her future and get a little bit of guidance. But she does make the disclaimer that psychics can really mess with your head. Well, she swears a little bit, but I'm not really into swearing. So, psychics mess with your head, according to her. There are a couple of interesting little kind of parts from this that I just want to read out, including this bit that talks about the most recent psychic I went to had been on Oprah, for God's sake, and because of their stellar credentials, I took what she said to me to heart, really to heart, and it messed with my head. So later she talks about how the psychic gave her some guidance on things to do with jobs and her career and the future there, whether she'd have another kid or not, because that had been on her mind. Her and her husband were trying to figure out whether to have another kid or not. Yeah, there's this one bit about her husband in particular that says, "Then she told me about my husband. He'd been incredibly ill 2 years previously and admitted to hospital for emergency surgery on his spine." And then going on, "Susan knew things about his condition that our closest friends didn't even know. She pointed me to the spot on herself exactly where he'd had the surgery on his back, and she floored me. She told me my husband was as well as he's going to be and that it wouldn't happen again. He'd be okay. By this point, I was an emotional wreck." This story in particular I found quite interesting because the psychic did get a lot of things right in terms of telling her about her life and things that had happened. And then it gets onto the predictive stuff, and the woman talks about how, "Now here's why seeing a psychic messes with your head. I'm currently cruising along at work, feeling maybe too secure and safe that I'm not getting made redundant, but I'm still doing the best job I can. But am I meant to be applying or looking for another job? I asked Susan if this career change was something that was going to come to me or something I should be chasing. She said I'd have to go and get it. Well, hello, early 2013 is almost here and I'm doing nothing. It's freaking me out." Throughout this article, she uses these phrases like, "See how much this is screwing with me?" and so on. It's tough because from reading this story here, this is just one example, but from reading this one story, it seems that the psychic that she went to see did get a lot of hits in terms of telling her things about her life that were kind of currently going on. But all the other stuff, all the predictive stuff, this woman's had obviously a lot of kind of like emotional trauma going on in her life. Her husband was ill. She's worried about her job. She miscarried a baby and she doesn't know whether to have another one or not, and things like this. And the fact that this psychic is literally making her freak out so much, it just kind of makes me a bit sad, because I do feel a lot of the time like they are kind of preying on the emotional vulnerable. And on the one hand, I can see why going to see a psychic would be a kind of comfort thing for some people. It would help them out a little bit. But on the whole, I think it is just taking advantage of very vulnerable people. The next reason I don't like psychics is because they often charge an extortionate amount of money and offer no real return on that. Seeing a psychic can cost a lot of money. There are some cheaper options, but on the whole, people charge a lot of money, and it's often difficult to know what you're getting in return. It's not really the same as, if you pay for another service like a manicure, or you pay for a service like for someone to clean your house. There you actually see results. When you pay to go see a therapist, you not only have someone to talk to about your problems and things, but they often give you actual activities and actions and things that you can go away and do, and you can kind of see how it's influencing your life. When you see a psychic, I just don't think you're really ever getting your money's worth, even if it does offer you a bit of comfort. And there's so many examples of psychics just taking money and spewing a load of garbage. So there's this one example of, you might have seen this, it's quite a famous one. A news station decided to kind of like run a bit of a test, and they went to a psychic and they basically showed her a photo, and this guy made up a story and said, this is my sister, she went missing when she was like 12 or something, can you help me find her? And this woman charged a crazy amount, said, oh, I'm sorry, she's dead, this is how she died, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah.
We asked a psychic detective to help solve a missing persons case. We showed her a photo of this missing girl, and she agreed to take the case for $400.
But I think it's solvable. I don't believe she's alive. I'm sorry, I believe that it was a violent passing.
McQuarrie's sixth sense told her the girl was brutally murdered and sexually assaulted.
I think she was hit in the head with a rock.
And it turns out that that wasn't a missing child at all. It was just a childhood photo of one of their current news reporters. And it was interesting because this woman charged a lot of money for this, and she clearly had no idea what she was talking about. She had no idea what happened to this girl, who this girl was, and I just think that's a real shame.
The next day, McQuarrie sat down for an interview with me to talk about the work of psychic detectives.
I just had a gentleman in yesterday. 30 years ago, his sister disappeared.
She soon began talking about a recent case, but clearly her psychic abilities didn't tell her that I was the girl in the picture.
One of the first things I do in a case, Lisa, is I always make sure people know that if I feel the person is living or not.
So you'll always know,
Yes.
when you talk to a family member, when you start a case, you'll know if this person is dead or
Yes.
alive.
And that's the point, is that
Every time.
Yes.
Lori, I'm going to show you something.
Yes.
Does this girl look familiar to you?
Yeah, she does. I worked this case.
This is a girl who you said was beaten and killed.
Okay.
This little girl is me. And you told somebody that she's dead.
Wait a minute. You didn't disappear?
I'm right here.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
How do you explain being
I
completely
can't
wrong?
explain it. I can't explain it.
You're charging them hundreds of
Okay.
dollars.
You know what, dear?
Hundreds
Okay,
of
we're done.
dollars. You're taking advantage of
Okay.
desperate people with a bunch of hocus
Okay.
pocus, aren't you?
No, I'm not. I think we'll go. Thank you.
I also saw a Vice article that talked about going to see 4 different psychics and asking them if they could connect with her sister who died. The sister never existed, yet they all managed to connect with her. So again, this is just one of those things where they're charging a lot of money, but they're not actually really giving anything back on the whole, and I think that's a shame. Third reason I don't like psychics is because they often interfere with police cases and criminal cases, and they can really mess things up. So one of the most famous examples of this is probably around the Amanda Berry case. Her parents were really distraught when their daughter Amanda went missing, and they actually went on TV, and a psychic called Sylvia Brown told them, I'm sorry, your daughter's dead, you know, she's at peace now, it's okay, you can try and move on. And while this sounds like a nice sentiment, you can say, oh, she was trying to give the family closure or whatever. The truth is, Amanda wasn't dead. Amanda had been kidnapped and was being held captive in a basement for 10 years. But because of Sylvia's reading her prediction, her saying that Amanda was dead, the parents probably stopped putting quite as much pressure on the police. The investigation probably got pushed back a little bit, and they weren't maybe doing as much as they could have over that time. Either way, Amanda's mother died thinking that her daughter was dead, when really she wasn't. She was out there, she was in a very traumatic situation, she needed help.
Almost 9 years ago, Amanda Berry's mom went on the Montel Williams show, where resident psychic Sylvia Brown spoke of Amanda.
I don't think I'll ever see her again. Yeah, in heaven on the other side.
The WMMS morning show in Cleveland reenacted the transcript. The host read the part of the psychic.
I hate this when they're in water. She's not alive, honey.
Not alive? Then who's this?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now.
Amanda's mom is the one no longer alive. She came home from the psychic's reading telling the Cleveland Plain dealer she was devastated. She died a little more than a year later after being hospitalized with pancreatitis.
So this is just one of those cases where psychics can seriously mess up. And there have been so many other cases where psychics have phoned in police helplines and been like, oh, I'm a psychic, I've got this vision, go here, go here. And the police, they go out and they put man hours into following these psychic leads, and there's nothing there because they have nothing to substantiate their claims. One example I did see of a psychic actually getting things right was quite an interesting one, because she told the police all these things and she told them where they'd find the body, and the police were a bit suspicious. And it turns out that this woman had actually literally just been a witness, but she wanted to try and get credibility as a psychic, so she claimed that, you know, she'd connected with the spirit of the dead girl and she told her where to find the body, and it all turned out to be a load of rubbish. So there's that. The next reason I don't like psychics is because they tend to just tell people what they want to hear, and that's not always the best thing for people. The psychic twins are famous for doing this, and I'll show you a few clips of them talking to YouTubers where they literally just basically feed their egos and tell them what they want to hear.
What's the connection with John Lennon?
I'm a huge Beatles fan, and everyone that watches my videos.
Oh my God.
And you guys noticed, like, I have pictures of the Beatles everywhere.
I think
a past life. Do you get a feeling she had a past life in Japan?
Yes.
I feel like she did, and I feel
China.
Do you think that influences my style? Because everyone's like, have you been to Asia? Because you dress like
people
it.
ask you that.
Yeah.
I feel Japan is, and you're going to go to Japan at some point.
Really?
You're going to travel there.
I love anime personally. So.
Okay.
Everyone wants to know, will me and Shane be friends forever?
Oh, you guys
please.
always will.
Oh, you are like soulmates in a certain way.
Yeah.
I really want to start my own charity. I really want to do something like that. And
Your own charity.
Start your own charity.
Oh, it's absolutely going to
Well,
happen.
yeah, because
It's
you're a
absolutely gonna
leader, and that's your mission. I feel like you will do that. It feels more like in 2 to 3 years.
I just wrote it too. I wrote it too.
You are a musician. I feel like you're going to be joining a band, actually, at some point.
it's my dream.
That's your dream?
Yeah.
Because I think my mom and I have been in past lives together.
Yeah, you were in, I'm glad you brought that up, because I do feel you knew your mom in 2 past lives, and one was in Japan. Do you have a connection?
It's gonna happen in like my YouTube world. I don't know, my life's very like centered around that, obviously, so I'm curious.
Well, you're just going to keep growing. I think you're going to be doing extremely well.
Exponentially growing so much over the next few years. It's going to be like mind-boggling. And I think you're going to be further developing your brand and merchandising lines. I really think that you will expand, and even Terry was seeing a possible film offer.
Oh, yeah, I saw you in a film role, and I think it could be this coming year.
Like, I swear this cannot be healthy for people to just hear what they want to hear all the time. And as we saw in the case of the woman who said the psychic screwed with her head, it can mess you up. And if you put a lot of faith into these things and you really rely on them, it can really change how you live your life and what you do with your life. And it just, I don't know, I think it can potentially be not necessarily dangerous, but it can be damaging, you know? Last up, I want to talk about how often the people who claim they're psychics, they fully believe that they have these abilities, and I mean, not all of them. Some of them are just basically out to con people, but some of them, especially the ones who are kind of naturally good at cold reading and don't necessarily realize they're doing it, a lot of these people, when we go along with their claims that they're psychic and believe in them, we are kind of just feeding into their delusions a little bit. And that worries me. There was one example of a psychic doing a reading for a man, and he came away from this and said, oh, it's brilliant, she's wonderful, she got everything spot on, it's great. And then James Randi actually reviewed the conversation, the reading, and he noticed that she actually threw out like hundreds of names and got so many things wrong, and the man just kind of didn't notice, and it was a strange one.
Good evening, everybody. I hope to be able to make a link with someone here tonight and bring a loved one through from the world of spirit.
Do people remember accurately what takes place in a reading? Well, we have with us tonight Mr. Rod Beal. Mr. Beal, you're a satisfied client of Maureen's, I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah.
She did a reading for you not too long ago, which I understand you think is a very good reading.
Yes, she did.
A few simple questions, if I may. First of all, how long did the thing last, first of all, the reading?
About half an hour.
About half an hour. How many names, pardon me, did she give you during that period of half an hour? would you
Probably
say?
half a dozen.
About half a dozen. And did they all hit?
Not everyone.
How
But
many did
they
would
had
you
a
say?
similar sounding, like Doreen, Maureen, that type of thing.
Well, you were kind enough to give us a tape recording of that reading done by Maureen Flynn for you. And for your information, during your reading, Maureen Flynn tried these names, and they are on the tape of the reading that you're referring to. Alan, Alfred, Alice, Ann, Bill,
Charlie, Colin, Connie, David, Derek, Eileen, Ellen, Flory, Frank, Fred, George, Jim, Joe, John, Karen, Catherine, Kevin, William, Lisa, Liz, Lynn, Mark, Mary, May, Michael, Rob, Ron, Shirley, Sydney, Stanley, Sid, and Steve.
That's 37 names, and she also asked you if you could connect with any name beginning with an N or an L, and you could not do so.
But anyway, what does this all mean? Can psychics ever be good, or are they just all terrible people? Well, no, of course, they're not all terrible people. I think psychics can do good for some people. They can give them a little bit of closure in certain situations. They can give them comfort, they can give them guidance. But on the whole, I don't believe psychics actually have any kind of supernatural powers. And I think that pretending they do, and I feel like sometimes, you know, they're giving this kind of help and guidance and telling people what to do with their lives without actually being qualified. And I think that can be really dangerous. That can be really damaging. I don't think they should have that kind of like power, do you know what I mean, without training. And, oh, well, sirens in the background. Sorry if you can hear that. But yeah, so in a lot of cases, I think the problems do outweigh the benefits. That said, I think there's a lot of people out there who do want to believe because it gives them comfort, especially the belief that there's something after death. I think that's a very comforting thing for some people, and I think a lot of people like to go to psychic because it's very comforting knowing that you can still connect with your loved ones even after they're gone. I think people like that, but I don't actually think there's any truth behind it. But that's just me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. One thing I will say is that I think I would actually quite like to go and get a psychic reading and just see what happens. But at the same time, I don't really want to waste my money. So it's a bit of a strange one. But I think, I don't know, maybe it could be quite fun to do. Who knows? I'd like to see just how much they get right or wrong. Because I'm quite a public person online, and quite a lot of my personal life is out there. But at the same time, a lot of stuff isn't. And the stuff that I think I'd like a psychic to pick up on and talk about, I haven't put online. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they came back with for me. Anyway, this was just a kind of basic introduction without much substance to some of my thoughts on psychics. If you'd like to see more on psychics and mediums and supernatural stuff and me trying to debunk a few specifics of that, please let me know in the comments and let me know what you thought of this video. But for now, thank you so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon.